Respect it if you've ever sat there staring at your phone wondering why he hasn't called, why he hasn't texted, why someone who once couldn't stay away suddenly feels distant. Then what I'm about to share with you might just change everything you thought you knew about love, attraction, and the way a man's heart really works. Let me tell you something straight, the way Steve Harvey would say it. Most women think the way to keep a man is to give him more attention, more love, more availability, more reassurance. But here's the truth that nobody wants to admit. The more you chase, the less he values. And the moment you step back, something shifts inside him that he cannot ignore. Now listen carefully, because this is not about playing games. This is not about manipulation. This is about understanding human nature, especially a man's nature. There was a woman I once heard about. Beautiful, intelligent, kind, the kind of woman any man would be lucky to have. When she met this man, everything felt right. He called every day. He texted good morning and good night. He made plans, he showed effort, he made her feel seen. And like many women, she thought, this is it, this is real. But slowly, things started to change. The calls became less frequent. The texts became shorter. The energy shifted. And instead of pausing, instead of observing, she did what most women do. She leaned in harder. She texted first. She double texted. She tried to remind him of what they had. She tried to fix something that wasn't hers to fix. And guess what happened? He pulled away even more. Now, I want you to feel this for a second, that anxiety, that confusion, that voice in your head saying, what did I do wrong? That's where most women lose their power. Not because they aren't enough, but because they forget their value in the moment someone else forgets it. But then something changed. One day she got tired, not angry, not bitter, just tired. She woke up and realized something simple but powerful. If he wants to be here, he will be. And if he doesn't, no amount of effort from me will change that. So she did something that 99% of women never do. She stopped. She stopped chasing. She stopped initiating. She stopped trying to prove her worth to someone who was already benefiting from her presence without earning it. And at first, nothing happened. A day passed, then 2. Then 3, and that silence, it wasn't empty. It was loud. It was uncomfortable. It was full of questions. But for the first time, she didn't react to it. She sat with it. Now here's where it gets interesting. On the 4th day, her phone lit up. His name, a simple message. Hey, you've been quiet. Everything okay? Now think about that. The same man who was slowly disappearing suddenly noticed her absence. Why? Because for the first time, he felt what he had been giving her: distance. You see, a man doesn't truly feel your presence when you're always available. But the moment that presence is removed, even slightly, it creates a space in his mind. And that space starts to fill with curiosity, then confusion, then longing. But here's the mistake many women make at this exact moment. The second he comes back, they go right back to giving everything again. And just like that, the cycle repeats. So understand this deeply. Making him miss you is not about disappearing forever. It's about reminding him what life feels like without your constant energy, your attention, your warmth. Because when something is always there, it becomes normal. But when it's gone, it becomes valuable. Now I know what some of you are thinking. But what if he doesn't come back? Good. Because if your absence doesn't affect him, your presence never truly mattered to him in the first place. And that's not something you should fight to keep. A man who values you will feel your absence. A man who doesn't was never yours to begin with. And this is where emotional strength comes in. Not the kind that pretends not to care, but the kind that understands your worth without needing constant validation. Let me explain something about men that most people don't tell you. Men are wired to pursue what they feel they might lose. It's not about games. It's about instinct. When everything is certain, when everything is predictable, when you are always there no matter how little effort he gives, there is no challenge, no urgency, no reason for him to step up. But the moment that certainty disappears, something wakes up inside him. He starts to wonder. He starts to think. He starts to miss, not just you, but how you made him feel. And feelings are powerful. You see, people don't fall in love with you because of what you say. They fall in love with how they feel when they're around you. And when that feeling is gone, even temporarily, it leaves a gap. And human beings are wired to fill gaps. Now let's go deeper. There's a difference between silence and emotional withdrawal. Silence can be peaceful, confident, controlled. Emotional withdrawal is reactive, painful, forced. When you stop reaching out, it should not come from pain. It should come from clarity, from self-respect, from the understanding that your time, your energy, your attention are valuable. Because the truth is, the right man doesn't need tricks. But the wrong man reveals himself when you stop giving him everything for free. And this is the trick that 99% of women ignore. It's not about making him miss you. It's about giving him the opportunity to. Because if you never step back, he never steps forward. And that changes everything. Now, I want you to ask yourself something honestly. When was the last time you allowed someone to earn your presence instead of just giving it away? Think about that. Because the answer to that question might be the reason why he doesn't miss you the way you want him to. This is not about becoming cold. This is not about becoming distant. This is about becoming centered. When you are centered, you don't chase, you attract. When you are centered, you don't beg, you choose. And when you are centered, you become unforgettable. But there's a deeper layer to this, something most people don't even realize they're doing that pushes a man away without a single word being said. And once you understand this, you'll never look at relationships the same way again. Let me take you deeper into something most people never talk about because it's uncomfortable, but it's real. There's a silent energy you bring into every interaction, and a man can feel it without you ever saying a word. You might be smiling, you might be replying casually, you might even be acting like everything is fine, but underneath it all, if your energy is saying, please don't leave me, he will feel that. And when a man feels that kind of pressure, even unconsciously, he starts to pull away. Not because you're not enough, but because neediness feels heavy. And here's where the real shift happens. The moment you stop needing him to validate you, he starts noticing you in a completely different way. I remember another story, a woman who had been in a situation where she was constantly trying to hold things together. She was the one making plans, checking in, making sure the connection didn't fade. And one day she asked herself a question that changed everything. Why am I working harder for his attention than he is for my presence? That question hit her hard because the truth was she had been overgiving, not out of love, but out of fear. Fear of losing him, fear of not being enough, fear of being replaced. And fear never builds attraction. So she made a quiet decision, not dramatic, not announced, just a decision within herself. She said, I'm going to match his effort. Now listen carefully because this is powerful. She didn't cut him off. She didn't ignore him completely. She didn't play games. She simply stopped overextending. If he texted, she replied, but she didn't rush. If he called, she answered, but she didn't stay on the phone for hours just to keep his attention. If he made plans, she showed up, but she didn't rearrange her entire life just to be available. And something fascinating started to happen. At first, he didn't notice because he was used to her doing more, but slowly, he began to feel the difference. The energy had changed. The dynamic had shifted. And for the first time, he had to lean in a little more to feel the same connection. That's when the messages became more frequent again. That's when the effort started returning. That's when he began to wonder what changed. But she didn't tell him because the change wasn't for him. It was for herself. And that's the part most people miss. You don't create attraction by trying to control someone else's behavior. You create attraction by controlling your own. You set the standard. You define the energy. You decide what is acceptable and what is not. And when you truly understand that, everything changes. Now, let me explain something about emotional availability. There's a difference between being open and being too accessible. Being open means you are genuine, warm, and real. Being too accessible means you are always there, no matter how little effort is given in return. And when you are always available, you remove the mystery. You remove the anticipation. You remove the space where attraction grows. Think about it like this. If someone hands you something every single day without you ever asking for it, eventually you stop appreciating it. But if that same thing becomes rare, limited, something you have to earn, suddenly it becomes valuable again. Your time is the same way. Your attention is the same way. Your presence is the same way. Now, I want you to really hear this because it might challenge you. A man will not miss what he never had to work for. Let that sink in. If he didn't have to earn your attention, if he didn't have to put in effort to keep you, if he didn't have to show consistency to experience your presence, then your absence doesn't feel like a loss to him. It just feels like a change. But when he invests, when he puts in effort, when he builds something with you, then your absence becomes a gap he wants to fill because now he has something to lose and people protect what they invest in. This is not about punishing him. This is about teaching him how to treat you without saying a single word because your actions speak louder than anything you could ever explain. Now let's talk about one of the biggest mistakes women make when trying to make a man miss them. They disappear, but they do it emotionally wounded. They stop texting, but they're checking their phone every 5 minutes. They pull back, but inside they are anxious, overthinking, imagining worst case scenarios. And that energy, even in silence, still affects you because you're not actually at peace. You're waiting. And waiting is not power. Peace is power. When you truly step back, it should feel calm. It should feel grounded. It should feel like you are returning to yourself, not abandoning someone else. Because here's the truth. The goal is not to make him chase you. The goal is to make sure you're not chasing someone who isn't choosing you. And there's a big difference when you operate from that place. You stop reacting. You stop overanalyzing. You stop trying to force outcomes. And instead, you observe. You watch what he does without interference. You see how he responds without your constant effort. And in that space, truth reveals itself. If he steps forward, you'll see it clearly. If he stays distant, you'll see that clearly too. Either way, you win. Because now you're no longer guessing. You're no longer hoping. You're knowing. And knowing brings peace. But there's something even deeper happening inside a man when you truly pull back the right way, something tied to his ego, his instincts, and his natural desire to feel like he's earning something valuable. And when you understand this part, you unlock a level of attraction that most people never reach. Now we're about to step into something deeper, something that most people feel, but very few understand. A man's ego is not what people think it is. It's not just pride. It's not just confidence. It's not just him wanting to feel important. A man's ego is deeply tied to how he sees himself in the world, and more importantly, how he feels when he's around you. When a man feels like he is winning with you, like he is earning you, like he is rising to meet your level, something inside him locks in. He becomes focused. He becomes intentional. He becomes invested. But when a man feels like he already has you without effort, without consistency, without showing up fully, that same energy fades. Not because you're not valuable, but because he never had to prove anything to keep you. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine a man climbing a mountain. Every step he takes requires effort. Every move demands focus. And when he reaches the top, he values that view, not because the view is rare, but because the journey made it meaningful. Now imagine someone picks him up and places him at the top instantly. Same mountain, same view, but no effort, no journey, no meaning. That's how attraction works for many men. If there's no journey, there's no attachment. And this is where so many women unintentionally lower their value, not by who they are, but by how easily they give access to themselves. Now hear me clearly. You are not supposed to be difficult, but you are supposed to be valuable. And valuable things are not easily accessible. They are respected. They are earned. They are protected. So when you step back, when you stop overgiving, when you allow space to exist, what you're really doing is giving him a chance to step into that role. The role of a man who pursues, the role of a man who invests, the role of a man who realizes, I don't want to lose this. And when that realization hits, that's when he starts to miss you in a way that goes beyond surface level attraction. Now let's talk about something even more powerful, memory. Because missing someone is not just about absence, it's about emotional memory. A man doesn't just miss your presence. He misses how you made him feel, the way you laughed, the way you listened, the way you brought peace into his life. But here's the catch. If you are always there, always available, always giving, those moments blend together. They become routine. And routine doesn't create longing. But when those moments stop, when that emotional experience is no longer easily accessible, his mind starts replaying them. He remembers the details. He feels the absence. He notices the silence. And that silence starts speaking to him. That's when he reaches out. Not always immediately, not always perfectly, but the thought begins, and thoughts lead to action. But there's a level beyond this that most women never reach because it requires something difficult, letting go of control. You see, you cannot make someone miss you by controlling their behavior. You can only create the conditions where missing you becomes natural. And that requires trust, not trust in him. Trust in yourself. Trust that you are enough. Trust that your presence has value. Trust that if someone walks away from you, it's not a reflection of your worth, it's a reflection of their readiness. And when you truly operate from that place, something shifts in a way that words can't fully describe. You stop trying to hold on. And when you stop holding on, the right people hold on to you. Now let's get real for a moment. There are some men who will not respond to your absence. There are some men who will not step forward. There are some men who will let you walk away without a fight. And I know that hurts to hear, but that truth is not there to break you. It's there to free you. Because the man who doesn't notice your absence is not the man you should be trying to make miss you. You cannot build something meaningful with someone who is comfortable without you. And this is where your power truly lies. Not in making him miss you, but in recognizing who deserves access to you in the first place. Because when you give your energy to the right man, you don't have to create distance for him to value you. He values you naturally. He shows up consistently. He makes effort without being asked. And he doesn't need to lose you to realize what you are. But until you reach that point, This understanding will protect you. It will guide you. It will keep you from overgiving, from overthinking, from losing yourself in someone else's inconsistency. Now, I want you to imagine something. Imagine waking up one day and instead of wondering if he misses you, you're focused on your own life, your goals, your peace, your happiness. Imagine being so grounded in yourself that whether he texts or not, you are still whole. That energy is magnetic. That energy is unforgettable. And ironically, that's the energy that makes a man miss you the most. Not because you're trying to, but because you're no longer depending on him to feel complete. And that changes everything. But there's one final piece to this, something subtle, something powerful, something that ties everything together and determines whether he comes back or whether he disappears for good. And once you understand this final truth, you'll never have to question your value again. Now we arrive at the part that ties everything together, the part most people overlook because it requires honesty, patience, and a level of self-respect that not everyone is ready to embrace. Because the truth is, making him miss you is not about what you do. It's about who you become when you stop trying. Let that settle in for a moment, because everything we've talked about so far, the silence, the space, the stepping back, none of it works if deep down you're still operating from fear. Fear of losing him, fear of being alone, fear that if you don't hold on, everything will fall apart. And here's the reality. Anything that falls apart because you stop forcing it was never stable to begin with. Now listen closely, because this is where your real power begins. There's a version of you that is constantly worried, constantly checking, constantly waiting for a message, a sign, a confirmation that you matter. And then there's another version of you, a quieter version, a stronger version, a version that doesn't need constant reassurance because she already knows her worth. That version of you doesn't chase. She doesn't beg. She doesn't over-explain. She simply exists. And in her presence, people either rise to meet her or they fall away. And she is okay with both. That's the energy that makes someone miss you deeply. Not distance alone, not silence alone, but the combination of self-worth and emotional independence. Because when a man realizes that you are not waiting around for him, that your life is full, that your happiness is not tied to his attention, something shifts inside him. He starts to feel your absence differently, not as a break, but as a loss. And loss is powerful. Loss creates reflection. Loss creates awareness. Loss forces people to look back and ask themselves, did I take something valuable for granted? But here's the key, and I need you to really understand this. You cannot pretend to have self-worth. You cannot fake emotional independence, because eventually your actions will reveal the truth. If you say you're stepping back, but the moment he texts you reply instantly with excitement, he feels that. If you say you're focusing on yourself, but you're constantly watching his every move, he feels that too. Energy doesn't lie. So this is not about acting different. This is about becoming different. And that takes time. That takes intention. That takes a willingness to sit with yourself and ask hard questions. Why do I feel the need to chase? Why do I feel anxious when someone pulls away? Why do I give more than I receive? Because when you answer those questions honestly, you don't just change how men see you. You change how you see yourself, and everything flows from that. Now, let me share something with you that might be the most important thing in this entire conversation. A man missing you is not the goal. The goal is alignment, because someone can miss you and still not choose you. Someone can come back and still not treat you the way you deserve. Someone can feel your absence and still not be ready to give you what you need. So don't confuse attention with intention. Don't confuse him reaching out with him stepping up, because those are two very different things. And this is where your standards come in. Not the kind of standards you talk about, but the kind you live by. The kind that says, if you want access to me, you have to meet me at my level. The kind that says, I'm not here to convince you of my worth. I'm here to share it with someone who already recognizes it. And when you truly live by that, you stop settling. You stop chasing. You stop accepting half effort and calling it love. And something beautiful happens. You become selective. You become intentional. You become the kind of person who doesn't need to make anyone miss them, because the right people naturally do. Now let's bring this back to something simple, something real, something you can carry with you after this moment. If you want him to miss you like crazy, don't disappear out of pain. Don't go silent to prove a point. Don't step back hoping it will control his actions. Instead, return to yourself, pour into your life, rebuild your focus, reconnect with your purpose, and let your absence be a byproduct of your growth, not a strategy for his attention. Because when you grow, when you evolve, when you become more of who you're meant to be, people notice, and the ones who truly value you, they don't just notice, they respond, they step forward, they show up. And the ones who don't quietly remove themselves from your path. And that is not a loss. That is clarity. So if there's one thing I want you to walk away with, it's this. You don't make someone miss you by giving less. You make someone miss you by reminding them without saying a word that your presence is a privilege, not a guarantee. And once you truly understand that, you stop asking, does he miss me? And you start asking, does he deserve me? And that question changes everything. And now let this land in your heart, not just your mind, because everything you've heard up to this point was never really about him. It was always about you. About the version of you that forgot her worth the moment someone else became uncertain. About the version of you that gave more, tried harder, waited longer, hoping that love could be secured through effort alone. But love doesn't work like that. And as Steve Harvey would tell you in his own powerful way, a real connection is not something you chase. It's something that reveals itself when you stand firm in who you are. So here's the truth, simple and undeniable. If he misses you, let him. If he comes back, observe him. If he reaches out, don't lose yourself in the moment, because the goal was never to pull him back. The goal was to never lose yourself again. There is a quiet strength in a woman who knows her value, a calm confidence in someone who doesn't need constant attention to feel worthy. And when you step into that energy, you don't just become someone a man misses. You become someone unforgettable, not because you tried to be, but because you refuse to be anything less than real. So from this moment forward, I want you to move differently, not with fear, not with desperation, but with clarity. If he wants to be part of your life, he will show you, not just with words, but with consistent action. And if he doesn't, then his absence is not your loss. It's your protection. Because the right man will never need to lose you to realize your value. He will see it. He will respect it. And most importantly, he will rise to meet it. So stop asking, how do I make him miss me? And start living in a way that says, if you lose me, you'll feel it. Not because you tried to prove something, but because your presence was real, your energy was rare, and your self-worth was unshakable. And that kind of woman, she doesn't chase. She doesn't beg. She doesn't wait to be chosen. She chooses herself. And in doing that, she becomes the one no one ever forgets.